You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. Volatility Views is brought to you by Miax, one of the fastest options platforms in the world. Miax is now trading options on the SPIKES Volatility Index, offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction for confident trading, all for competitive exchange fees. It's time to make a change and give yourself an edge with SPIKES. Learn more about SPIKES at www.miaxoptions.com/spikes. Options involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
My name is Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting, at least we hope so, the Options Insider Radio Network. If I sound a wee bit different, because I'm not coming at you from our studio in Chicago today. I'm from a few hours north, the northern Chicago, a.k.a. Milwaukee. But the volatility show never stops, the fun never stops, and the markets never stop. So we keep on rolling here on the old program. And joining me here today to help me conduct this Volatility Symphony, first off, from the grand headquarters of Option Pit by way of Carmen Line Capital, we have the greasy meatball himself, Mr. Mark Sebastian. Mark, welcome back to the program. Have I misspoken? Are you at the headquarters? Or are you in a Costco near me, maybe? Perhaps
no, I'm at the headquarters. I'm downtown. I got Derek Double D Denton with me, my Greenwood intern, and we've been just studying the vol, getting ready for today's awesome, exciting, action-packed show of Volatility Views.
Yes, action-packed indeed. And also joining us, where there actually has been some action of late, our old buddy, Mr. Shelly Brown, the EVP over there at Miax Options. Shelly, welcome back to the program, to you as well.
Mark, thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. I think with the gang all assembled then, that means it's time, listeners. It is time to dive on into our volatility review.
It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Volatility Review. This is indeed the portion of the program where we break down the week that was and indeed still is on the volatility spectrum. It's kind of been a bit of a weird week, a bit of a middling week. The market kind of having a hard time really finding its groove. We saw some mild rallies, some mild sell-offs yesterday that turned into mild rallies. And then today we have another pretty mild to unched day on the street. Most of the major indices slightly up coming into showtime here. We're seeing, looks like the Dow leading the charge, at least percentage-wise, up about 0.25% or so. The S&P pretty much unched as well. And all of that meaning that our old friend VIX Cash and indeed Spikes they've been on an interesting journey today as well. Coming into showtime, we had VIX Cash around about a 13.5, and it's still about that level right now, which puts it up not quite a handle, about 0.9 from our last show. So I guess my feeling a little bit more vol in the space was the way to go, even though I don't think I felt enough, but there's still an hour left, so we know anything could happen out there in the volatility space. Spikes getting back to its old premium over VIX Cash days again at about a roughly 13 3/4 or so coming into showtime. That puts it up about a 1.3 from this time last year. You know, for a while there was kind of an interesting dance going on where VIX was getting a bit of a premium over Spikes. Now Spikes is kind of back to its old juicier, frothier ways. And our old friend VVIX with this kind of middling week, taking a little bit of a break. It's off not quite 3 handles, but pretty close from where it was this time last week. It's down to about 83.5 or so coming into showtime. So let's start there, Mr. Meatball. It's kind of an interesting week, kind of like I said, a middling week, kind of hard to find any real traction in one direction or the other. We thought we had some downside yesterday. Then they said nope, and going right back up to the green again. So what's been catching your eye in this weird volatility week, sir?
It's been an interesting week. We had really nothing super crazy go on during the week, but what we did see is that the market went from its all-time high down about $40. VIX went from, threatening to break the 12 handle into 11, spikes kind of the same, to back to about 13 whatever. But at the same time, we've seen, vol futures never really did very much around any of these movements. Basically had a 50 cent range, and the implied spike future kind of same thing. There was, really not a lot of action across the board on any of these names, sans, some really interesting, vol was basically kind of for sale in the vol space most of the week would be kind of what I noticed.
I like what you're saying there. I like that implied vol spikes future. Implying the future to come, sir. I like that.
Well, that's how you calculate stuff with spikes right now. It's not that hard to figure out where spikes should be traded, where the spike future is going to be trading. It's just a combo, right?
That's pretty much it. I just like that term, the implied spikes future. That has a nice ring to it coming up. Speaking of the future, sir, anything catching your eye? I don't have the futures curve in front of me, but you kind of mentioned it already a little bit. That not a heck of a lot really moving. Last week we were kind of welcoming back our old friend Contango, who has been absent for most of 2019. Anything catching your eye this week in terms of evolution of the curve?
Yeah, no. The curve did flatten up kind of midweek as VIX was rallying a little bit, but we still have a pretty steep contango. Now that July's rolled off and VIX has rallied, it's a little more normal. We got about 27 days to go, and the spread's about 1.6, 1.7. That's pretty darn normal from where I live.
Well, you do live in the town that changed the earth, so maybe normal for you is a little bit of a different frame of reference than for us. Speaking of frame of reference, we'll get into all the hot action in a minute there, Shelly, but let's kick things off. What's catching your eye and what's been lighting up your radar on this somewhat middling week, at least until today, sir?
Well, we had something happen this week we haven't seen before. A big trade happened not on a Tuesday. Last week you pointed out all the big trades have been Tuesday. We had a customer come in yesterday to do. It looks like he rolled his position. The 1x2 that they opened in August a couple of weeks ago looks like that was rolled out to a September position. So that was exciting. It was our biggest trade we've had to date, 30,000 contracts.
Oh, nice.
But again, as each of the other large trades, it has spurred a ton of interest. Our phones have been ringing off the hook here since the trade went up yesterday, and we get more and more people looking at the product and more people asking questions. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I guess we can bid adieu to Super Tuesday and spikes. That was kind of your thing. That was kind of your branding. Trade your spikes on Tuesday. Now we got to add Super Tuesday and maybe Funky Friday or Crazy Topsy Turvy Thursday. We could add to it. But you're right. We're seeing that now. I'm looking here at the OI, and the OI, up quite a bit. Big change out there. Last week, the big positions were the 8,500 of the AUG 26s and about the 5,000 close to it of the AUG 18s. It was that 1x2. Our old friend listeners, the Volatility 1x2. Doesn't matter if it's VIX, doesn't matter if it's spikes, doesn't matter what the heck the product is. People love their ratios in the volatility space. It's kind of just the table stakes trade these days, and we're seeing that out there. I guess it's a good sign, Shelly, that they're not one and done, right? They're staying around. They're keeping themselves at the table. They're still playing. So they didn't do the 1x2 and say, okay, I'm out. I'm going back to something else. They're keeping around. Does that encourage you guys out there that this paper is continuing?
It is very encouraging, and the fact that they can get great prices here, just like they can in the other product. There's several brokers out there who are willing to work orders for customers. So in terms of execution price, they're getting equal execution quality, but they're doing it for much less expensive execution cost, being that our fees are so much lower than those in the VIX product. So I think each time a new customer comes in and tries the product, I think they'll stay here. They've enjoyed the experience, and hopefully it just keeps growing as it has.
Yeah, and they adjusted their strikes a little bit too, listeners. Last time the 1x2 was the AUG 1826, roughly 5,000 by 10,000. This time they kept the numbers the same in terms of volume, but they adjusted their strikes down a little bit, which, go figure, makes some sense given the fact that we have seen some erosion in the month or so since this trade went up. Now they've rolled to 5,000 by 10,000 of the SEP 1725. So just a strike lower. Not a crazy earth-shattering change, but still a little bit of an adjustment there. So now SEP 25 is the top spikes open interest position with 10,000 on the board over there. So yeah, big stuff. Mark, did you watch this trade go up this week? Did this come across your radar?
Yeah, and it makes sense. The two vol indexes, the VVIX and the soon-to-be-released but not currently monitored Viking, both were registering really low numbers and got pretty cheap yesterday. I mean, the implied volatility on those quarters is below 100, which is pretty inexpensive given where they land for spikes. So, I think people taking advantage of the fact that the Viking is probably on its near a low tick.
Yeah, people obviously liking what they're seeing out here. Even caught the eye of our old friend, the Flow Master there, Mr. Henry Schwartz from Trader. Even he's writing about it. So you've done something good if it's come across his radar over there, as he is the keeper of all flow in the space here these days. But yeah, interesting stuff going on here. Good to see that flow continuing. You never know if that 1x2, if it was one and done, or if it's continuing. Looks like it's the latter out there, which is pretty good. Let's move on to VIX options. All in all, VIX options, I don't have the numbers for today. Like I said, I'm on the road a little bit here, a little bit beaming in from the northern, not the southern studio today, but the slightly northern, 2 hours northern studio here today. But so far coming into today, a fairly light week, all things being kept equal here in the volatility space. We're seeing ADV up a little bit this week, but up only slightly, up about 20,000 contracts to about 441,000 contracts out here. Let's look down. Let's break down the top 10 out here in VIX land. That'll give you an idea of kind of how light things are. Number 10 is 102,000 of the, getting back out to DEES now, getting a little DEES on the rate. Maybe people have been listening to the show, and they've been realizing that DEES future maybe a little bit light compared to what the rest of the curve is showing, at least. So maybe taking advantage of that. Obviously, we've said before, people love the 37 halves. So DEES 37 halves, our number 10 option here, 102,000 of those. Number 9, the AUG, pretty much everything else is AUG. The AUG 21s, 102,000 of those bad boys. Number 8, the AUG 30s. Once again, our 30s back on the top 10, 112,000 of those bad boys. Number 7, the AUG 26s, $1.16 on the tape. Number 6, AUG 25s, 123,000 of those. Number 5, the AUG 19. So nice little AUG call strip here, $1.29 open there. Number 4, get our first and only put in the top 10. So a rare thing. Maybe people haven't taken most of their puts off after this, a little bit of downside here. The SEP 16 puts, $1.34 on the tape there. Number 3, back to AUG, the AUG 24s, 139,000 of those. Number 2, back to the AUG 37 halves. That strike persists. It's interesting. 149, almost 150,000 of those. And our number one open position, again, shows you kind of how light things are in VIXland these days. The 174,000 of the AUG 20 is usually $1.74 is probably enough to get you a ticket into the top 10, but not to number one. This week it is indeed number one. Total OI about 5.8 million, 4.3 million on the calls, and exactly 1.5 million open on the puts. Mr. Meatball, you liking these D's 37 halves? Do you get the magnetism of the 37 half strike? It seems to be the new hot thing. Do you get that?
I want to say that was part of some sort of ratio spread, and that's why I think it was like some sort of like 1/6 or 1/5 that went up sometime in the last week. And like I said, I cannot understate how much vol selling there's been. I don't know if now's the when you want to talk about some interesting trades I saw this week, but
let's get into them. Let's get into them now. Go for it.
Yeah, so I gotta say this is the strongest nothing is going to happen trade that I saw this week was in August. A customer came in, and here's kind of the confidence they had. It's actually quite impressive. They came in and sold and here I'm going to get the exact strikes because I want to. They came in and sold the 12 half, 13, 14. 13 half and 14 puts, and then they sold the 15 calls, the 16 calls, the 18 calls, and the 20 calls. Something like I want to say that was the trade. They dumped, and this traded for some size. They dumped these at $6.10, $6.15. 2,000 times each. So, we're talking about 32,000 contracts traded in a short couple of days. It was a pretty impressive vol splash, if you will. Clearly, the guy has no fear that we're going to be moving very much between now and the end of August. Here it is. Here it is. It's the AUG 12 half, 13 half, 14, 15 put versus the 16, 17, 19, 23 calls, 615 and 610. Just absolutely nothing's going to happen.
So he pretty much called up the crowd, said, "How is vol in August?" Okay, sold.
Correct.
I will take all of it.
I will sell you whatever you want.
Quote me August. Okay, sold.
Exactly.
Wow, that is impressive. That is a man saying
that was
nothing.
Little more interesting trade today. A customer came in and bought the 16, 21, 26 call fly in September, 20,000 times, paying 67 cents. That was a relatively large trade that went up, and that's a bet that, hey, maybe we see some action in September. We did have a buyer of like 20,000 at the AUG 13 and a half puts. Some other small stuff, but a lot of what I'm seeing is customers selling, the 19 calls, the 22 calls, the 20 calls. They're not going so bold as to dump like the 16 calls, but the penchant for nothing's going to happen in August is pretty high right now.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing here, Tim. I was kind of scrolling through some of the big trades of the week. Yesterday, you're right, AUG 20s lighting it up on the bid, 13,602 times. 10,000 of the AUK, a little bit of AUK out there as well. 17s, those were kind of on the bid as well. Those went up late, though. But it could be some AUK 17. That's interesting if you're going that far out to sell the 17s. That's a little more aggressive than we've seen in terms of just nothing happening for a while. Then you got AUG 20s on Wednesday hitting the bid for size 20,000 times just in this one block here. AUG 19s, 15,000 of those bad boys going up near the bid on that one as well. So, yeah, it's kind of been the order of the day. Here's AUG 13 half. This could be part of your friend here, too. This is a sweep, though. This didn't go up as a spread. This went up as a sweep for 48 cents. So that he could be actually buying those puts. They did do that. That was they bought 20,000 of those for about 48 cents. That was done as a sweep. Someone said, okay, this guy's selling all August. I'll buy some August.
Yeah, well, that's more of a VIX is gonna. That's more of like the guy's probably thinking. If you look at the timing, if the VIX is kind of your convergence trade, he's probably betting that we're going to see the VIX get maybe back to 12, and then there'll be a slow burn. It's as VIX hangs out between 12 and 12.5.
Yeah. Did Carmen line partake? Did you buy any AUG from when it was all for sale?
I didn't get a look until after it traded. I did do a couple of small trades that we like. We like being long August put and short. What's interesting is, if you want to know where there actually is maybe a little bit of bid in implied volatility, is kind of the in August in particular, the 12s and 12.5s have been kind of expensive. So we've been liking, and I'm looking at Spike right now. So, a trade we kind of like that we might build in something like the Spikes is the 14-12 put spread, which can be purchased for, the market's 45.70. So you can buy that for less than 60 cents. That's a pretty nice play on Spike, on the Spike index backing off, and a kind of a nice convergence trade. And I know Shelly loves endorsing trade ideas and saying how great they are. But kidding, he can't do that. But he can say he likes the fact that I built that convergence trade in the Spike Index options, and that is what I just did there.
There you go, Shelly.
I'm a big fan. Thank you.
A Miax options hat is in the mail forthwith for you there, sir.
I can't wait.
On Tuesday, we saw some big call days on Tuesday as well. This could have been part of your friend here. Big trade, 70,000, over 90,000, 96,000 total of the AUG 19s going up for 69 cents. Looks like kind of a variety of prices on those. I don't think he was buying those, though.
No, that was a sale. That was a sale.
Go ahead, Shelly.
Tuesdays, those on Tuesday are supposed to come to Spikes?
Yeah, no kidding. Tuesday.
I don't know what he's doing. You guys got to put that marketing out there. Super Tuesday in Spikes. It's Tuesday. It's Vol Day. If you're thinking Tuesday, you're thinking volatility. You should be thinking Spikes. I've seen worse promotions. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, what I was thinking is the Spike Index needs to license Will Smith's "Welcome to Miami" to, and you can send that like a nice video montage of all the awesome trade ideas you can do in the Spike Index. As like a YouTube video. That would be pretty awesome.
I like that.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
By the way, you had that position out for CMO. If you see a name that's Victor Sabatini, that's actually me applying, and so that you won't know that it's me, so that you can be free and independent.
I see you're going the non-ethnic route for the fake name there. I like it. Well done.
Correct.
Sabatini. Then what we got Monday here, we got AUG 18s lighting it up on another sweep here, about 15,000 times here for 50 cents, so near the bid. And then looks like a bit of a put roll, someone keeping the not much happening, at least to the downside, alive here with 14,000 of the 14.5 puts going up for, looks like they did it for 53 cents, and looks like they might have sold that one. So maybe keeping some short puts to the downside alive here as well. Anything else catching your eye out there in VIX Landmark before we roll on into your favorite ever-evolving, ever-eroding product?
You know what? Like I said, it's just been shocking how much vol has been for sale. And, that's really been what has interested me the most. Up until this September call fly, there's been zero appetite for upside hedging. Despite the fact that at points we've seen VVIX and Viking get near the 80 level, which is just super inexpensive.
Yeah, vols for sale except for that 1x2 for size and spikes that he keeps rolling. So, that's a near-term sale, obviously, but obviously he wants that thing to explode to have that thing really kick in. So that's kind of one of the few trades we see out there that actually is picking up a little bit of upside. Everyone else is dumping it wholesale. Or if that guy in VIX, you're just selling an entire month. I like that.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Next will call up, how's SEP? Okay, sold. Okay, I like that. Or the market makers out there may be like, oh, wait a minute, we're gonna widen that bad boy out a little bit. Let's move on to our ever evolving friend VXX. I know the product a lot of you guys love to fade to the downside. Maybe someone giving up the ghost on some of that this week. We'll get to that in a little bit. But come into showtime, it's right around the 23 handle again, which pretty much puts it pretty much around unched from where it was last week. So all you guys, and we talked about this on the show recently. I was talking about this with the Rock Lobster not too long ago. It's had a good run to the downside. You can't expect that all the time. You might expect a little bit of a tempering of that erosion. That's pretty much what we saw this week, a little bit of a vacillation in the markets, enough to keep us relatively unched out there. So they can't all be big payday weeks to the downside out there, listeners. Let's look at our top 10 here out here in VXX land. Number 10, we got the SEP 22 half puts, 22,000 of those bad boys. Number 9, then SEP 19, those July 22 half puts, then number 9, and then SEP 19 puts for 22,000 of those bad boys as well. Number 8, AUG 22 puts, getting the theme here, 23,000 of those. Number 7, the July 22 puts, 25,000 of those. Number 6, July, here's our first call on the list. July 32s, about 28,000 of those. Number 5, back to Jan 14 puts, 29,500 of those. Number 4, the July 42s, 32,500 of those bad boys. Number 3, the July 23 puts, 35,000 of those. Numero dos here, July 35 calls, so a little bit upside still left. 38,000 of those. And number 1, almost 41,000 of the SEP 17 puts. So we're starting to see, remember for a while there, listeners, we had talked about the bias in the paper flow. You know, we joke about the erosion. I know you guys in the audience, a lot of you guys love to play that, but in the OI, it was kind of biased the other way. It was a lot of upside. More than half of the top 10 was on the call side of the spectrum. Obviously, there could be sales in those, but in general, call paper was leading the charge. This week in the top 10, this is the first time in a little while we've seen puts taking up the lion's share. Only 3 calls in the top 10, so 70% on the put side of the ledgers. Look at the OI. Actually, still calls overall, though, still outnumbering in total OI. About 1.4 million options outstanding, about 750,000 on the calls, and right around 640,000 in the puts. Looking at top trades, looks like maybe someone yesterday giving up the ghost for size for VXX at least, not VIX or SPX size, but just size for VXX. About 10,000 of the July 21 half puts going up on the bid for a penny. Looks like Mr. Rock Lobster, someone deciding maybe 21 and a half by next week was a bit of a bridge too far and taking their nickel while they can. Do you concur, sir? Who's this man, Rock Lobster? I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. I meant the one-eyed meatball. How's that? I'll combine the two. The one-eyed meatball. That's maybe a part of me, but not the whole thing, bud. It's been lots of. A lot of what I've seen has been plays on playing VXX to die and the vol product itself to die. That's been kind of the only piece that I've really seen a lot of. The flow in general has been, 1, a little anemic in that product, and 2, there has been definitely just some downside. The most active option today is the July 23 puts, and the second most is the July 26 20.5 put. So, they're trading stuff that is just July 26 all willy-nilly, but there's definitely some downsides definitely being bought, and really not a ton of upside has hit. Yeah, I'm looking here out to the big trade this week. Looks like a put fly. It was a SEP 16, 17, 18 put fly going up at least 5,000 by 10,000 times. Looks like at least 10,000 more of the SEP 17 puts went up. So at least 20,000 of the 17 puts and at least 5, probably 10,000 of the 16 to 18. Looks like, let's see here. They went up 1 by 2 by 1, as you would expect here. Looks like they maybe sold this guy. Did you see this one go up, Mark? This put fly? I actually didn't. But, that would make some sense. I did see the biggest trade I actually saw that got quoted was the Jan 2020 2420 put spread got bought. Maybe that was last week, but that was one of the bigger trades I saw, and that's been about it. That sounds pretty par for the course for VXX. Jan downside. That's about, if you had to have me guess what's trading. Yeah, I'd probably guess Jan downside is probably somewhere out there. Let's move on out to, it's back. Earnings season is back, listeners, and earnings vol is back in the headlines and in the headlights of the show here today. I think one of the big ones that caught a lot of people's attention this week was the old Widowmaker. Let's just run down some of the names we had reporting this week. We had Citi, we had Wintrust on Monday. Tuesday, a lot of the financial names, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and Goldman Sachs, and Schwab, and First Republic all reporting as well. IB reporting on Tuesday as well. Domino's Pizza, if you're into the pizza side of the space. And on Wednesday, of course, everybody watching Netflix and eBay and good old Beamer. Netflix, their price hike coming back to hunt them a little bit. You know, they've been a little bit aggressive price hiking side in the times of content getting more expensive and more competitors coming on the horizon. Maybe a dangerous time to do that, and they kind of saw that play out in their numbers. Also, some of their big originals like Stranger Things didn't hit till this cycle effectively, so that's not reflected in those numbers. So kind of a confluence of events for them there that made those numbers not looking pretty good. Yesterday we had Microsoft after the bell and E-Trade and Morgan Stanley and everyone's favorite Amex, not the exchange, but the American Express here on the docket. By the way, if you want to see all these reports, the earnings move and earnings move results reports for free. That's how nice we are, for free. Over there at theoptionsinsider.com is the place to go. Click on that tab on the top of the site because you see a lot of the shows on the homepage now. If you go to the top of the site, you'll see that options, news, and articles tab. Click on that. You'll see a lot of interesting names. I'm just looking to see if we have any of the hot ones. We touched on Softy yesterday going into their numbers. I don't yet have the results report for Softy yet. That'll probably be going up soon over there on the site. But we kind of broke that one down, what they were pricing in going in. Let's just see. Let's just pull up a little bit of Softy if my device will. The mobile studio sometimes makes it a challenge here, listeners. There we go. All right, that's a little bit better. We're at about $136.86, so kind of unched, at least on today's action here. Let's go back a little bit to see. Yeah, we kind of spiked it out, pun intended, there at that was actually last coming into today. It was at 139, and then it kind of sold off a bit to the downside. So we're off about 3 handles from that height. I don't have here exactly what they were pricing in. We talked about it yesterday on the option block, exactly what they were pricing. So tune in for that one here. Head on over to theoptionsinsider.com. You'll see that. Mr. Meatball, any of your crazies? I know they like to watch earnings season from a volatility perspective, but anyone out there, any trading, anything exotic, any names kind of lighting up their tape here as the big names are popping off again?
Microsoft is interesting. Kind of the most interesting right now, I don't know if you saw this, there's oil vol is exploding right now as we're talking. There was apparently a seizure of a British tanker off in the Straits of Hormuz by Iran, and we're seeing oil vol now at 33.5. Oil is popping, and we're starting to see vol and the S&Ps give it away, and the Spike Index and VIX indexes are really starting to move here. Looks like at a minimum, people are not going to want to take stuff into the weekend, and there is going to be a lot of good reasons for people to take some potential money off the table here. So if you're wondering why is vol moving and why are we weakening, this is some breaking news that is moving markets.
They seized a tanker yesterday, and oil couldn't have cared less. It rallied a little bit, and then it kind of gave up the ghost. And of course, our day when we're not doing TWIFO is the day when they're moving WTI. These sometimes the on-the-go studios don't play ball. Does that sound better?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I was trying to do some quoting while I was doing it, and it wasn't helping my connection. Let's just say. But yeah, WTI obviously is something we're watching. OIV listeners, of course, is the VIX of WTI. The volatility of it's a good one to watch here. That's been one that tends to gap a lot these days, and sounds like today is another day when things are gapping. Keep on rolling then before the volatility smite me down. Let's keep on rolling.
Well, let's hear. Why don't while we're losing Mark, I can handle the stuff. So we're gonna before they kick Mark off the show, which hey, who knows, maybe they already did. Let's go to our volatility voicemail, people. That's if we're in Berkeley, we're supposed to say volatility voice person.
It's time to share your thoughts and opinions with your fellow volatility traders. It's time to check the volatility voicemail. Make your voice heard by dialing 779-669-4VOL. Posting a comment on the optionsinsider.com, sending an email to questions@theoptionsinsider.com, or posting your questions to twitter.com/options. or facebook.com/theoptionsinsider.
All right, people, and welcome
All right, can you guys hear me?
Kinda.
Much better.
Hey,
Yeah,
can you guys hear me now? All right,
yes.
there we go.
Mark, why don't I read the questions and you can chime in since you're having some audio, and that way everything comes out kind of clear.
Let's do that. Let's do that. That sounds like a plan.
All right. So question number 1 is from Hector, HCTR, and his question, or her, is if you could have your ideal vol product, what would it be? So we have no constraints. The realm of what it's not whether it's actually possible, it's what would be the perfect vol product. What would everybody want? So I don't know.
Answer.
I don't know, Shelly, you're allowed to answer that.
You know my answer. It's already created.
It is. Well, so his answer is the spikes. And I'm going to say that I agree with you, but I'm going to put a little bit of a caveat on that. I want a spike index. I would want a vol product where I can trade options, and the underlying is the cash spike, not the forward value of spike. Yes, it's impossible, but if I could have the perfect vol product, I would want an option product, a vol product that allows me to trade directly the cash value of spike, the spike index, and of course the VIX as well.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, you sound better.
I have repositioned a little bit. Yeah, you stole my answer, Mr. Meatball, which I know that's kind of what our audience probably wants too, even if they don't know it. They want something that allows them to trade the cash, right? Whether it's spikes, whether it's VIX, whatever it might be. They don't want to have to deal with, what's going on in the term structure and everything else like that. They want to come in. They want to say, hey, spikes is 14, VIX is 14. I want to buy it, right? That's what they want. So I think for a lot of our audience out there, or they want to sell it, a lot of our audience out there, that is the ideal product. So I think if speaking for our audience, I would probably have to lean that way. If I was going for myself, it might actually be something more along the lines, talking about difficult products, something more along the lines of what our buddies over there at Volex have been working on for years, which is something that can actually, if you have delivered, if the marketplace has exhibited a 30 vol over whatever period, and I would like some product that could give you that, right? That would be fantastic. So I probably myself personally lean more towards something on the realized side, but I think our audience would definitely love to be able to trade in and out of the cash indices. That would make their day, don't you think?
Yeah, they would absolutely love that. And that is absolutely, in my opinion, that would be the direction that I think the people would really like too. Is maybe a cash implied and a cash realized. The nice thing is that through variance swaps, there kind of is a product on realized, but those I think would be what people want, and and they can't get them, but that would be something people want.
Indeed. So there you go, Shelly. We need a realized spikes coming down the road. Put Simon to work on it.
Consider it done.
I like this, Mark. I like you reading the questions. Go for it. Hit the next one.
All right. Let me get question number 2. Do 1x2 put spreads work better in VIX or VXX? Put spreads, not call spreads. Do 1x2 put spreads work better in VIX or VXX? Mark, you want to take a stab first, or do you want me to go?
It's funny, I like this one because we don't get asked the ratios on the put spreads hardly ever, right? Everyone and their mother loves the call spreads. I get it. I get why volatility is poised to explode to the upside and kind of creep to the downside, right? So you don't get that same, it's not as sexy to do the 1x2 put spread to the downside. I'm assuming he wants to do it the same way as we're seeing on the calls, which is sell 1x2. I'm assuming he wants to do it that way. That's the way I'm going to interpret his question here. And of the two, I'm not super big fans of, because look at VIX right now, right? If you did the sell 1x2 here, you're not getting a lot of juice here for a downside move to make that pay off. So I guess of the two, he doesn't say what time frame. I would probably like it maybe a little bit medium time horizon more in VXX than I would like it in VIX. What about you, Mr. Meatball?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the nice thing about VXX can just keep going lower. VIX is kind of lower bound constrained.
Exactly.
So what I would say is I like what I'll say is I like buying one and selling two better in something like spikes or VX or VIX. But if I want to sell one and buy two inputs, then I agree with you, Mark. I really like and have this on. I like medium to intermediate long term. So kind of call it 6 to 12 month range, 1x2 put spreads in VXX a lot. But near dated stuff, I like VIX and spikes if I'm buying one and selling two. So, for example, in VIX, here we'll use Spike, right? They're the sponsor. So let's use the Spikes index. Is that so in Spikes? For instance, the index, the cash index is 1364, but I can potentially buy the 13-12 half, buying one 13 put, selling two 12 half puts, and doing that for even money, and then I win I win as long as Spike settlement is between 13 and 12. And if the spike settlement is above, all I lose is my commission cost. Whereas with something like VXX, a trade I might like would be something going out to like November and, selling the 16 puts and buying the 15 puts and doing that for even 1x2 and doing that for even money.
You got to go a little bit farther out in VXX. You can't go, obviously, in the weeklies.
Right, exactly.
But you're right. You don't have that same floor that you do in a Spikes or a VIX. So that's why it makes that way more attractive in the VXX. At a certain point, VIX and Spikes are kind of just going to stop. It's going to seize up. We've had that discussion before. What is the natural, latent, low, just base level of volatility of the marketplace? And check out some of our earlier episodes of the show for that conversation in detail, listeners. But yeah, I definitely like it that way. That's a good question. We have to get the listeners to work Spikes into these questions too, and then we'll have all three to analyze. I like this, Mr. Meatball. Read me another question. This is fun.
All right, I'll read you another question. Questions with Meatball and Mark. So I'm going to skip this CNBC one. All right, questions from Aiden. Know you guys are Game of Thrones fans. I thought this was an interesting analytical way to look at the show. Maybe this explains the drop-off in quality from the final season. And it is actually looking at the number of words per minute for each episode. And there is a incredible downtrend. A couple of blips, but there's a pretty decent provable downtrend of words per minute on the show as the seasons progress. I don't and we'll get this picture posted on the show notes and Mark, maybe you can tweet that out. But that is just I gotta say, it's not something that people would have thought about, but this is something that should absolutely get some sort of tweet should trend on Twitter.
Yeah, I love our listeners, right? Because they're analytical of everything, including Game of Thrones dialogue. Apparently, this chart here is and they analyzed the closed captions, the subtitles, right, to see just the pure volume of words in a given season. And you're right, the trend is clearly to the downside. They start off in season 1 pretty dialogue heavy. A lot of Littlefinger banter back and forth, right? And then as the seasons go on, it clearly skewed more towards battles and other things that don't have a lot of dialogue and maybe a lot of characters also going the way of the dodo. That doesn't help for the dialogue either. So the combo of those, and yeah, that probably is a contributor. You know, Shelly, I know Mark and I have talked about Game of Thrones before. I haven't had a chance to get in fact, I was just talking about this yesterday with the senior economist of CME. Even he's talking Game of Thrones on. So everyone's still obsessed with it. Shelley, were you into this show? And if so, what did you think of the final season and how they wrapped it all up? Sir, no spoilers, just general.
I have to admit, I'm one of the few people that's never seen an episode. Sorry.
A Game of Thrones Luddite, sir. How do you still exist? I didn't know there were many of you left. You had to have at least seen one. But yeah, this one. This I think this graph, Mark, what do you think? I think this actually explains a lot.
It's a fascinating graph. We got to get that out. I don't know if this got pulled from somewhere else, but this is just a fascinating chart, and just drives me. It's pretty fascinating. So Mark, 150? We got time for one more, you think, before we wrap things up?
Let's be generous. Why not? Let's do one more.
Sure. All right. So realistically,
you should do Neil Wales. He's bugging you for his book still.
I know. Neil, email me your address again. I'll get it out now. I promise. It'll be out by next week. So realistically, how much lower can the VIX ETPs drop? And this person names VXX in particular, but really it's all VIX ETPs with spikes and VIX seemingly stuck at around 13. How low can they go if the VIX is kind of just staying stagnant at the 13 strike?
That gets back to our old friend the Contango, right? And how aggressive is he back? If it's flat like it was for most of the year, then you're not going to get a lot of love on that front. But if you're super jacked in Contango land, then yeah, you might get some love even with the futures or the VIX and the spikes, as he puts it, stuck. I don't think we're stuck, but I don't know when this question came in.
No.
Yeah, he says relatively mild Contango. So with the mild Contango, I think it's kind of what we're seeing is kind of what we're going to get. What we're kind of in right now, we're in a mild Contango and we're around 13.
I think the interesting piece is that what we've seen with the vol futures and implied vol futures is that they really lose the first, looking at that 30-day period, that 30-day holding period for VXX. That first 15 days of the holding period, when that front month future is the majority of the contract, they're really been pretty strong, pretty firm. It's really taken the final 2 weeks for vol to come out. But when it has come out, it's come out pretty quick. So, if you do like a theoretical Contango calculation on something like VXX, it can lose 15 cents a day if you run kind of a constant vol decay. But with it taking a couple of weeks for things to soften up, the real daily decay has been more like 8 to 10 cents because it's been disjointed. So if you think about it, if Spike and VIX stay where they are for the next 3 months, you're going to be looking at a VXX that's below 18.
Yeah. I think we could easily see that going forward. I love our audience. They get all over the place.
We got a good audience. And we absolutely, for vol views, whenever we got our Miax guys, need to have their intro music be Will Smith's "Party in the City." Welcome to Miami. It's gotta be.
We should have a whole show. Mark reads questions to Mark. I like this. This is fun. I could do this for hours.
All right. So, hey, next week, if someone has, if if you live in the United States and you ask a really good question for the Miax guys, I will send you a book.
Don't live in where he lives, like in Kiwi country, I believe, Neil. No, so that's been kind of the problem.
Send it to like Botswana or something like that.
There you go. But other than that, though, I think it's time for us all to embarrass ourselves mightily. It is time for the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, everybody, this is the part of the show where it gets dangerous. It gets dicey. As Darkwing Duck says, let's get dangerous. What we got? So, yeah, come into showtime here. I was at a 1275 on the VIX, 1280. I was still feeling the premium. Mark, you were going the other way, 1280 on spikes. You were at 1220 on VIX and 1225 on spikes. I can't pull up a quote without losing my connection, so I'll rely on you, Mr. Meatball. Where are we right now in VIX cash and spikes?
So the cash index is about 1380 for VIX, and the spike index is, one second here, I just had it up, but I was looking at VX.
1371.
Yes, 1371. So again, the spike index still trading at that discount. So
discount
go
again.
me. So I think we're going to see some reversion, but we're also going to have the Fed. So, but we'll have some earnings out. So I am a buyer of puts on both. I'm going to go.
How do you get to go first? I was just at our 1 point boundary. I won technically, but not a real win. I was within a point.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you were outside. So, here's how I get to go first. Is I'm running the show right now.
Oh, you're in the big chair. All right. I'll let you have a little taste of power. Why not?
I'll do the. I'm gonna say 13 even for the VIX, and I'm gonna say 1295 for the spike index.
13 even and 1295. And you said we're at a 1380 right now, coming into the end of the show.
1375. Yeah.
I was at a 1275 and a 1280 for this time last week. And you said, I'm sorry, you said 13 even.
Yeah.
Because I was still kind of liking where I am, but I want to be charitable and give you. Actually, no, I'm not going to be charitable because you went first. I'm gonna pull a Sebastian. I don't usually do this. I mock this, but I kind of like where I am this week for next week. 1275 on VIX Cash and 1280 on Spike. So in that 1275 to 1280 range, I can see a little bit coming out, but not a ton. So I like that. So there we are, listeners. The 13 even on for the Meatball and a 1275 for me. He gets squeezed for his temerity to go first there. All right, and that's going to do it for the Crystal Ball. That's also going to do it for this on-the-road edition of Volatility Views. But before we go, let's go back around the horn, see what everybody's got cooking. Shelly, I know you're cooking up some volume, not just on Tuesdays, but now on Thursdays. What's next? Volume all week long? What can we expect from you guys?
Well, that's what we're hoping for. Like I said, we've had a lot of interest from several of the banks, and we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. But volume begets volume. We were 9% of the VIX volume yesterday. I'd like to see that happen more often.
There you go. I can see a nice little email coming out from you guys, some of your institutional clients, saying, "Hey, it's Tuesday. What are you doing in spikes?" Just nudge them a little bit. I could see that. Super Tuesday and spikes. I like where that's heading. I like the branding and theming of that. And Mark, if I want to learn about volatility, maybe on Tuesday or maybe any day of the week, where should I go? What should I do, sir? Yeah,
you can go to optionpit.com and we've always got all sorts of vol classes. On our YouTube channel, I did a webinar on what is the VIX, spikes, and VXX, and you can learn a lot there. I also want to throw out a sad RIP to one of my favorite brokers, MRH, Mark Hall, who passed away this week. I'll tell you, he was famous because I never met a broker that could tell me to shut up using a curse word while seeming cool, calm, and collected. So, Mark, you will be missed. You were a good guy, and we all mourn your loss.
Well said, sir. Was he with Schwab?
He was with JOH.
Oh, he was with JOH. Okay, all right.
He was Joe Frere's guys, yeah.
Joe's guys. Okay, yeah. The acronym sounds familiar. I was trying to place them. But, yeah, I think that sounds about right, one of the JOH guys. Yes, a lot of those floor brokers have left us, unfortunately, a sign of the passing of an age. And unfortunately, it's the passing of this show as well. I want to thank all of you out there for downloading, streaming, subscribing, for sending in so many great questions. Neil and the rest of you, stay on the meatball. Don't let them screw you over on the books. Make them send it to all over heaven and beyond to get your books to you. And we'll see you back here this time next week for more Volatility Views.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.